Hi, I'm Myra Castro. The Diablo Canyon nuclear facility, which was set to close, now looks like it will be extending its power generation to California. And we will take a further look into some new data on what's causing the oil seeps on the beaches of Santa Barbara.
Hi, I'm David Compton. A shuttered Oxnard, California power plant causes a unique piece of waterfront property to come up for sale, but its location is a stinky one. And perhaps you've seen the Oscar-winning movie There Will Be Blood, which portrays the early days of oil exploration in Southern California. Well, in Ventura, California, there's an oil company where the employees are bleeding.
Joe Biden approves oil exploration in Alaska. And I sit down with the CEO of a local energy producer who was recently at the center of a controversial Ventura County Board of Supervisors vote. All these stories and more coming up on this edition of Power On.
This episode of Power On is sponsored by California Natural Resources Group, your local energy company meeting California's needs today while extending us to the green energy future of tomorrow. The California Energy Commission has approved the state pursue extending operation of Diablo Canyon Power Plant through 2030 to ensure electricity reliability. The determination is based on data showing California risks energy supply shortfalls during extreme weather events driven by climate change. Senate Bill 846 requires the CEC to determine the need to extend Diablo's license to operate beyond its expiration date of 2025. The nuclear facility is located in San Luis Obispo County and is owned and operated by the Pacific Gas and Electricity Company. The nuclear power plant supplies about 17% of California's zero-carbon electricity and 9% of total electricity. An extension allows the state to rely less on natural gas and more on clean resources for the electricity grid. We will be right back after this brief commercial message.
The world is changing, and so is our energy needs. We're proud to be your local energy company leading the way to the green energy future we all desire. We are Cal Energy.
You've probably heard the old saying, if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. Well, I don't have a bridge to sell, but I do have a canal you can buy in Oxnard, California. That's where you'll find a 77-acre man-made canal sitting adjacent to the now shuttered 60-acre Mandalay Power Generating Station. The property is being offered for sale at $1 million. The canal is 60 feet wide, 20 feet deep, and was once used for cooling at the power plant. There is only one problem a potential buyer is going to have. The canal stinks. That's because since the power plant was closed, the water in the canal is no longer circulating with the ocean water, leaving a foul smell to it. The canal's pool of buyers also appears murky. The canal connects with the Channel Islands Yacht Club, but it appears that they're not interested in purchasing. So for now, the sale of the canal is treading water.
The Biden administration has approved the Willow Oil Project in Alaska, despite pleas from environmental groups and tribal communities to block the development. The Conoco project will include up to 199 oil and gas wells on 3 separate sites. The Willow project is expected to eventually produce up to 180,000 barrels a day. The oil and gas industry and Republicans have been critical of President Biden, blaming his climate and energy policies for last year's spike in energy prices after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The administration defended its Alaska decision as a legal necessity, saying that a denial of the leases that Conoco has held in the National Petroleum Reserve for decades would have forced it into a courtroom battle, and their options were limited due to legal constraints, as many leases were decades old, giving the company certain valid existing rights.
The Clean Power Alliance is celebrating its 5th anniversary of providing clean, renewable energy to residents and businesses throughout the Los Angeles and Ventura counties. Established in 2017 as a community choice aggregator, CPA began accelerating Southern California's clean energy leadership when it started serving its first customers in February 2018 with approximately 2,000 customer accounts. CPA now serves more than 1 million accounts throughout its 32 member communities, providing clean energy to more than 3 million residents and businesses. CPA has grown to become the fourth largest electricity provider in California and has a distinction of leading the nation in serving the most customers with 100% renewable energy. Coming up next, our field reporter Pia Ishal does a follow-up piece to her recent story about oil seeps on the beaches of Santa Barbara.
Every year, the amount of oil being produced in California is going down, and that sounds like a good thing. But the reality is our appetite for oil is not going down, and the production of renewable energy sources can't pick up the slack fast enough. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Energy Information Administration predicts that in 2050, fossil fuels will continue to provide almost 80% of the nation's energy, while renewables will provide about 13%. So you might wonder, if California keeps reducing its oil production every year, but the demand still remains, then where is our state getting the oil to meet our needs? Well, it's not from other parts of our country. That's because California is an energy island, and there are no pipelines that can bring supply in from other states. This leaves only one way: this. And it's how 70% of California's oil gets here, with the majority coming from foreign countries thousands of miles away. However, this oil is not like the oil produced in California, which is the cleanest and most heavily regulated in all the world. No, this oil comes from countries with lax production standards and social immoralities to both their people and their planet. When we reduce oil production in California with a not-in-my-backyard mentality, but then make up the shortfall in demand by importing foreign oil, which is produced in manners no Californian would ever willingly condone, we're just playing an international environmental shell game. We need to remember we are all global citizens, and when we power locally, we're actually thinking globally.
Hi, I'm Pia Ishal. In my last report, I covered how oil has been naturally oozing from the ground in Santa Barbara County for millions of years. But there is another natural seep, and it's not oil, it's methane gas. As a greenhouse gas, methane is 25 times as potent as CO2. Emeritus Professor James Bowles from Santa Barbara University recently analyzed decades of data on methane seeping from the seafloor southeast of oil platform Holly and just offshore from Isla Vista. After combing through 20 years of data, Bowles found that oil production at Platform Holly significantly reduced the amount of methane seep into the environment. Unfortunately, Platform Holly ceased production altogether in 2015 and is currently being decommissioned. However, since Holly shut down, longtime workers and supply boat crews have reported a considerable increase in methane gas seepage, which bubbles to the surface around the platform. While it might sound counterintuitive, given that methane vents in this area naturally, oil production in this area actually reduces the much higher greenhouse gas emissions from methane that occurs. I am Pia Ishal.
Perhaps you remember the Oscar-winning movie There Will Be Blood. It takes a look at the early days of oil exploration in Southern California. Well, there was blood recently being spilt in Ventura, California, and it came from a local energy provider. However, it's not quite what it sounds like, as the blood came from California Natural Resources Group, or CalNRG, who recently organized their Turn a Drop of Oil into a Drop of Blood donor campaign. According to Vitalant, the company who partnered with CalNRG to collect the blood, CalNRG's staff donated enough blood to potentially help save the lives of up to 69 local residents who would need this life-sustaining resource. If you would like to support our community by giving blood yourself, the link to Vitalant is shown on the screen below.
Hi, I'm Olivia Simonson with Power On News. I'm so excited to welcome Mr. Al Adler here of ABA Energy Corporation. ABA Energy Corporation was recently in the news and before the Board of Supervisors regarding a series of zoning clearances for drilling wells in the Oxnard Plain. And what Mr. Adler had the ability to explain to the Board of Supervisors in a favorable vote for his company was the commitment and regulatory engagement that Mr. Adler and his company have for their regulation, for their operations. And so, Al, I'm really excited to talk to you today. And what I want to hear from you specifically is give me some information about how ABA's operations are as clean as they are, and what you do as a company to meet the regulations around you and to go above and beyond with your regulators.
Thank you for the question, Olivia. It's nice to be with you. The answer to that question, I love talking about this topic. And the preamble for this is that everyone in meetings, publicly and privately, will say that even though companies like ABA that have a special use permit from 1957 are antiquated, what they don't realize is that all the regs supporting that evolve with time and are current. And so directly to the answer to your question, I'll pick 5 things. The first thing would be we participate actively in what I think is the only or the only method of its kind in the state, which is a cap and trade program, which is literally $75,000 a ton of reactive organic compounds. We're almost $1 million into the program. Number 2 is we spend a lot of money on a BACT, best available control technology flare, which literally reduces the effluent from a natural gas flare by 95%. Okay, we're not required to do that. We do that. We have a vapor recovery system that scrubs the majority of the free gases in our oil tanks and pipes it into the flare system. I think the biggie for us is we participate in what we call an LDAR program, which is a leak detection and repair program, where voluntarily 4 times a year, we sniff every hatch, every flange, every pipeline, every place where natural gas and ROCs could escape. We do that. And notwithstanding the statutory 2 pounds per day that the APCD scores us with, most of our facility is 0. It's airtight. We test it 4 times a year, including the time before the APCD does their own check on us annually. And I want to point out our LDAR, our self-testing is self-testing, but it's not by our personnel. We hire a third party to make sure that even though we're not required to do so, that it's arm's length. I think the 5th part is when it comes to the drilling, and this is not voluntary, but yet the benefits accrue to the citizens of Ventura County. The difference between now and even 20 years ago, when we drill a well, every single engine that a drilling rig uses now has to be CARB compliant, and they are remarkably cleaner than they used to be 20 years ago. And almost every contractor had to get brand new engines to comply with this. And so the last piece in this answer is that right before our last hearing, we had the Ventura County APCD score our lease from a point right in the middle of our facilities, including going past the wells to the housing tract to the south, right? And for cancer risks, for non-cancerous risks, for chronic and acute disease and breathing issues, and basically where 10 to 100 is horrible, 1 to 10 is intermediary. The bottom end of that is 1, which is deemed de minimis or no impact. Our highest score was 0.36, in other words, 1/3 of 0. And the bottom score was 0.01, which is 1/100th of 0. And then from an aesthetic standpoint, as I joke, but it's not really a joke with members of the APCD and the county, that our facilities we keep so clean that I invite people, you could eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich off the floor of our concrete. And I mean that. We take pride in how it looks, not only the things you can't see, like all of our leak detection and keeping the air clean, but environmentally, where we have farming operations all around us, we keep our facilities as clean as humanly possible. So that's kind of an intro and a lead into your question.
Thank you, Al. Thank you so much for speaking to me. That is so I love to hear the ways that our local energy producers are sharing California values and our community's commitment to the environment while also producing our essential energy resources. So thank you for outlining those things for me
My
today.
pleasure.
And thank you for speaking with me.
You bet. Have a great day, Olivia.
Well, that's it for this edition of Power On. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button. On behalf of myself, Olivia Simonson, David Compton, Pia Ischel, and everyone else here at Power On, thanks for watching.